The Daily News Online presents Inside High School Sports. Brought to you by Tonawanda Valley Federal Credit Union. With your host, Alex Brasky and Nate Ryder.
Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of Inside High School Sports. Alex Brasky and Nate Ryder at the offices of the Batavia Daily News here to bring you yet another jam-packed episode. But before we get into the material for this week's show, we'd like to remind you that this week's broadcast is brought to you by the Tonawanda Valley Federal Credit Union. Of course, at TVFCU, people love our low loan rates and our low account fees, but our expert staff is really what everyone raves about. If you are not a member, consider joining and learn why our TVFCU members are considered friends, family, and fans. New members are always welcome. Stop in at 10 Jefferson Square behind Wendy's in Batavia. You know what, Nate? I'm getting about this close from memorizing that, and every time I have a little slip up, but I'm getting better every week. So we'd like to thank TVFCU for sponsoring our shows through these difficult health times. And speaking of, Nate, that's really the story that's surrounding high school sports, or the lack thereof, I should say, with the governor continuing that pause, New York State pause until May 15th, I believe. That really might be the death blow for high school sports.
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good, especially since I don't think there's a chance they're going to reopen schools this year. And if you don't do that, there's no sports. I know there's been sections downstate that have already canceled the high school sports season.
I believe Section 11 and Section 8.
Yeah, all down toward New York City. I've also seen that I believe it's 36 or 37 states have basically canceled sports and school for the rest of the year. So, yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, the governor did pass off, kind of western New York and the rest of New York to both Kathy Hochul and former mayor of Rochester, Bob Duffy. So maybe they see things a little differently than New York City, so maybe there's a chance we could start to gradually get back in, but definitely not looking good. At least the weather right now is horrible, so nobody's missing out on anything right now. Yeah,
it started as a mild spring, has turned into a very cold spring very quickly. But there is some good news in terms of this show, at least. We are continuing our senior profiles that we have each week. So here's another senior profile, Nate's conversation with Grace Walker of Cal Mum Softball.
I've been starting these up by kind of asking everybody this question because it's unique. It's a unique situation. Just as not even an athlete, but as a high school kid, what has the last month or so been like for you?
It's been different for sure. It's taking a lot of getting used to, and it's kind of, I'm thinking to myself, this is setting a precedent for new times, and I'm missing out on a lot of stuff, but at the same time it's better for everyone as a whole that we're in this situation.
Yeah.
So if staying home and not being able to play my senior year of softball is helping other people, then that's okay.
Yeah. And then as an athlete, it's got to be, someone who's played sports their whole life, and, you look forward to, and we'll get to softball in a minute, but, you look forward to your senior year, and, yeah, you got a couple seasons in, but, just as an athlete, what is it like missing out on your what's going to be your final season?
It's a letdown, for sure. It's the season that you look up to, you're supposed to be most successful in your senior year, but unfortunately, we may not get to see that, keeping my hopes up, but it's saddening to see that we might not be able to have the big picture all 5 years.
And obviously you're not used to losing, and last year was an uncharacteristically down year for Caledonia. I know you guys were young.
Yeah.
And you guys had to be really kind of building and working toward this final year, or at least your final year. Talk about the work ethic and everything that went in to try to turn that around and for yourself to finish out on a high note.
Yeah, last year was definitely tough, but in the off season, I know myself as well as a lot of other girls started playing travel softball and working really hard to get to the big goal of this year. We dropped a division, and our sectional class is a little easier, so it would have been a big year for us for sure. And we're just trying to keep working in case it does happen. So we're getting together. There's workout plans from our school that people are sending out. So the team is definitely working hard to get to the season.
Is it a lot of self-motivation, really, to try to keep in shape and not get too lazy?
Yeah, definitely. It's all on you. If you don't work out, if you don't practice your skills, you're not going to be successful, and that goes for anything, not just softball.
And just tell me about. You came up as an 8th grader, and you kind of just really burst on the scene from there. And what did that ride, those first few years, feel like for you? Like you had to feel like you're never going to lose.
Yeah. In 8th grade, really, we were on top of the world. Like, we went to states. That was a great experience, and kind of, I don't want to say it went downhill slowly, but like it did. We lost a lot of good players, but we're on the uphill rise right now with the team that we have right now. And I watched a lot of the girls when I was in 8th grade have awesome senior years. So thinking about it now, like that would have been how my senior year is. Kind of sad.
Yeah, I've talked to Coach Dickens, and first off, what's it like playing for Dan Dickens? It's got to be exciting.
He's awesome. Best coach I've had for sure.
And he just talks about your work ethic and just being a leader, both on and off the field. Is that something you kind of take pride in, that you saw some of these older girls do that you really wanted to do as you got older?
Exactly. I was a captain as a sophomore, so I was grouped in with all of the older girls, and I had to really step up in that time. And I looked up to girls like Mackenzie Wilson, Hannah Anderson, Emily McDonald, all of those girls who played for CalMom. And I don't want to say copied what they did, but I really wanted to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. Talk me through the decision for St. Bonaventure. It's a great opportunity and to play Division I, and you did it early. You got it out of the way, I think, in August, and then you signed, I think, in November.
Yeah.
What was the decision there to first get it out of the way and just commit before your senior year, and how'd you choose Bonaventure?
So St. Bonaventure, if you talk to anyone in this area, you will meet someone who went to St. Bonaventure. It is all around. It's a great school, great atmosphere. It's small, so like Caledonia, there's a lot of tight bonds, and I love the coaching staff at St. Bonaventure. So when I first committed in August, I really just wanted to get it off the plate, have my senior year be stress-free, and I wouldn't have to worry about, am I going to go to this school, am I going to go to this school? So I was all set. And now I didn't really have anything to worry about going into the season. I could just play softball, have fun.
Obviously softball is your main thing, but like I said, also talented soccer player and basketball player. How much work do you put in those sports compared to softball? Is it equal, or a little edge towards softball?
There's definitely a little edge towards softball, but in the summertime I go to the weight room with Coach Schock for soccer, and for basketball we couldn't do a lot of the same things that we did in the years past because we don't have as many girls. We had 8, so we couldn't do summer leagues and stuff like that. But I help with Mr. Reed's basketball camps. But mostly I play a lot of softball. A lot of softball.
When did that, obviously being an athlete your whole life, when did you start to gravitate more towards softball, you think?
I'd say in 7th grade, that'd be 12 years. I started playing travel ball, and I started to really love it, and I really wanted to be on varsity and like all of those girls. So I worked my hardest, and eventually I got there.
I mentioned Coach Dickens, but Chad Schock and Mike Reed are also great coaches. What you think of those 3 coaches? How lucky do you feel being able to play for those guys?
Exceptionally. They all have such great characteristics. They're not the same at all, and you get a little bit of this with Coach Schock, and then you get a little with Mr. Reed, and they all have had so much success over the years.
Interesting tidbit. Coach Schock actually coached my baseball team when I was a junior and senior in high school. So, in playing sports at Caledonia, it's kind of a mystique about the school. And what has that been like, and being a part of that and being successful at Caledonia?
You just hear Caledonia is a tradition of excellence in sports. For as long as I can remember, there are athletes, and we've been winning sectional titles. The boys basketball team just won a title this year. They were going to go to states. And to be a part of something so special like sports at our school is a memory that I will never forget, for sure.
So how much time do you actually spend sitting around and kind of wondering what could have been this spring?
Honestly, it being me, I can't sit around and just twiddle my thumbs and think about it, so I try my best to go work out and do all my schoolwork, distract myself from thinking about it, rather than dwelling on the fact that it may not happen.
Yeah. Have you been in touch with your coaches at Bonaventure? Have they told you kind of anything to prepare for? Or, I don't know when you were planning on showing up at Bonaventure. I don't know how they talked to you about what their plan is going forward with all this.
So that's kind of a unique situation. So since we're in this quarantine, the NCAA changed a few of their rules so I can speak to the team and all of the coaches on Zoom about anything that's not softball. So like we go about and we talk about mental toughness and all of that stuff. So I get to like dip my toes in the water and meet all of them earlier than I would have before. So that's a huge advantage.
What's it like meeting some of these people you're probably going to spend the next 4 years of your life with? That's got to be kind of neat.
Yeah,
huh?
it's so cool. I already have my roommate who's also a softball player, so I get to talk to her more. I get to meet all the girls in my class, and while we're talking, we just I get to pick up on how they do things there. And the seniors are also in the Zoom calls, so you get to hear how they're dealing with things, which is not quite as bad as, well, my situation is not quite as bad as theirs is. Like they lost kind of their identity for like the end of the year.
Yeah, think back to being a 7th grader, or even when you got called up to varsity in 8th grade. Did you ever think you'd be playing Division I softball?
It was my dream, but no, I really didn't.
How much work went into this to make this possible?
Tons, and it's not just me. It's my dad driving me all the way to Webster and back for practice twice every weekend. It's Dickens going and scouting and all of this stuff, and all of the girls before me. It's not just. It is. I don't want to say it. It is the extra time that I put in, but it's all the people I've learned from also.
Yeah. Just not even athletically, but what are some of the things you're just missing out on right now in high school?
I miss my friends big time. I do not want to miss out on graduation, a normal graduation. And my senior trip got canceled to Florida. That was a little bit upsetting, but I'm afraid of planes, so it's fine.
What's one of the first things you're going to do when somebody finally says, okay, we're easing up and you can all start to get back to normal? What's like the one thing you're going to want to do?
I know this is probably stereotypical. I want to play softball. I want to play a softball game very badly.
Yeah. When it's all said and done, whether you play this year or not, when looking back at your high school career, do you think you accomplished everything you wanted to?
I'm satisfied with how my career has went. I just hope that I made an imprint on the girls that are there now, and hopefully they do all the great things that came before me even.
And Grace is one of those seniors, Nate, that you're really sad to see all this happen. I mean, a longtime player for Calmum really was she was really on pace to have quite the senior season, and Coach Dickens and company have really got to be sad to see her career come to an end and perhaps see her go.
Yeah, a starter since she was in 8th grade. She was a part of 2 sectional title-winning teams. I believe it was when she was a sophomore or a freshman or one of those. Actually, it might have been 8th grade year. They went to the state tournament. And she's just had an amazing career, followed in some big footsteps there at Caledonia. And, it's sad. She's committed to go to Bonaventure next year and play Division I softball. She's excited about that. But, the one thing she's really missing out is last year they were down. I think they were 7-13, 7-14, and she really didn't want to end her career on that note. And, she's just one of those talented players that, the best thing she said during the interview is at the end, and she just wants to play softball. That's all she wants to do. I guess, like you mentioned, she's a soccer player, basketball player, multiple varsity years on both of those, but the spring's really where she shined.
Now, I'm sure you learn something different each week that you do these senior profiles with these athletes. You learn something different and something new about each athlete. What was the new thing that you learned about Grace through your conversations with her that perhaps you didn't know about her coming into the interview?
One of the things that I found out Coach Dickens named her as a captain as a sophomore on a very talented team with a lot of players. I believe Emily McDonald was on that team, Hannah Anderson, and he kind of handed the reins to her as a young player, and she really stepped up to it, and stepped forward, and kind of took that on. And Coach Dickens just says, he just loves her. She's a well-rounded student athlete, not even just on the field and on the court. He mentioned her decision-making off the court and all the things she does. I know she's the senior class president. She's just one of those people who, they come along every now and then. That's just a blessing for a school to have.
Yeah, so another great senior profile conducted by Nate Grace Walker of Calmum Softball. All right, Nate, another new segment on this week's episode. Great moments in high school sports history, and boy, do we have a good one for you in the first edition of this new segment. But first and foremost, we'd like to remind you that this segment and all segments of this show are brought to you by the Tonawanda Valley Federal Credit Union. At TVFCU, you can count on us at TVFCU. Everybody loves our low loan rates and our low account fees. We told you that already, Nate. And at TVFCU, you can find out why our customers are considered friends, family, and fans. 585-343-5627. That's 10 Jefferson Square behind Wendy's in Batavia. It's really important to us to have TVFCU on board. We appreciate them continuing to sponsor us through these difficult health times. But getting back to the topic at hand, our new segment, Great Moments in High School Sports History. And Nate, one of the most exciting plays to happen in Section 5 boys basketball history, the 2013 Batavia boys basketball team advancing past the Far West Regional game against Section 6 Titan Olean off the back of a buzzer-beating three-pointer to win the game by sophomore, I believe, Jeff Redband off of the JV team. I believe he had 2 or 3 threes in that game, but none more important than that one that won the game.
Yeah, you definitely. We're just going to go downhill after this one. You hit the high note right off the bat. But yeah, I can't believe that was that long ago. I remember that game like it was yesterday. I remember sitting there and I was kind of over toward the bench where Batavia was, and I'm wondering what your old man's drawing up there. I think they were down 2 or maybe even 1. I don't remember.
2. They
were down 2 with about 6-7 seconds left, and they gave it to Justin Washington. It really wasn't the point guard of that team. They had Jalen Smith, and your brother Jake was on that team as well. And Washington took it right down the middle and fumbled it around the three-point line, and he fell. The ball just randomly gets kicked out to Redband, and he just calmly picked it up and fired over. He's a tall kid. He fired over an Olean player and right at the buzzer. I do remember, I thought it might have been a little late, but you showed me some video proof or photo proof that the light went off, but the clock was still at I think, .1. So, congrats to them. And, I still remember, they should have honestly won that game in the state semifinals against Waterville Elite, too. And a talented team that I believe had 2 Division I players on that team. And, yeah, that has to be one of your father's greatest moments in sports. And, obviously one of his better teams, if not one of the best.
Yeah, I spoke with my father, Coach Buddy Brasky, along with Jeff Redband, who made the shot, and Justin Washington, who kind of fumbled the ball to him. And they really just said over and over that there's nothing more exciting than what happened to him on that night. That really took Section 5 by storm, and New York State even by storm. It reached ESPN's top 10 plays as number 8. Which I think was a little not low enough there, but that's a decision for another day.
A
But
little biased.
yeah, yeah, a little bit. But definitely, it was definitely my father's probably most exciting moment in his long coaching career, and it's just something that you never forget, and really something that there's a bigger backstory to it than might meet the eye. Like I said before, a JV player being called up and being in that moment, that can only happen on a true team that trusts each other, trusts the coach, and all that stuff. And my father will hit on it in the interview. That team had been through a lot of turmoil that season within the team, and it really put a cherry on top of what was a hectic season, but like you said, a very successful team, a very talented team, which capped its almost capped its season, I should say, on one of the most incredible moments in Section 5 boys basketball history.
Coach, kind of set the stage for us. Just give us a little rundown of how important that game was for you guys and kind of what happened on that play and the excitement that occurred afterwards.
You know, that was the game to get to the state Final Four. And before the year started, we have been going down to the Olean tip-off tournament every year. And I thought we had a real good chance to maybe see them in this regional game at the end of the year. So I declined the invitation to the tip-off tournament. I really didn't want them to get a chance to play against our defense in case we played them later in the year. And as it happened, that's exactly what happened. So we got them in the Far West Regional. You know, it was really a nip and tuck game. We got off to a good start. We were up, I believe, 3 points at halftime. It was either 3 or 5. We were up at halftime. We were the underdogs. They were the number one team in the state. They caught fire in the third quarter. They hit at least 5 or 6 threes in the third quarter. We fell behind by 10. And it started to look, you know, not so good for us. And then Jamison Etienne had a stretch where he scored our next 8 points to get us back within range. Got us to within like 4 points going into the fourth. Dip and tuck going into the throughout the fourth. Tie game down less than a minute now, and we come down with the ball, and we turn it over. And they get the turnover, they shoot the gap, get the interception, and go right in for a layup and take a 2-point lead. So we come back down, and I believe I called a timeout, and I set up an out-of-bounds play. And they shoot the gap again, and it looks like they're going to get the steal again. They tip the ball, and it goes rolling into our backcourt. And Justin, the hustler that he was, right, Justin? The hustler that he was. Of course. Justin sprints and dives after the ball, and the Olean guy dives, and they like dive at the same time. Justin gets his hand on it, but he can't corral it in, and it starts rolling out of bounds on the end line all the way down at the other end of the court. Well, one of the biggest plays of the game that nobody remembers, but Jeff will remember, Jeff sprints the length of the court, and just before the ball goes out of bounds, his foot is like an inch from the end line. He saves the ball and throws it back into Jamison Etienne, and we call timeout with 6.5 seconds left. So that was a huge that without that play, the next play doesn't happen.
All right, now getting to the next play. So here we are, 6.5 seconds to go. You guys are coming out of the timeout. Justin, the play is for you to bring the ball up the court. I'm not sure what was supposed to happen afterward, but obviously you take the tumble, ball goes to Jeff, he bangs the three. But take us through from your perspective, what was your job on the play, and just take us through from your vantage point what happened with that final 6.5 seconds.
I was supposed to get the ball, go straight to the rim, tie the game, send it to overtime. But when I got the ball, guy cut me off. I thought it was a block, but it's obviously too close of a game for the officials to make that call. So I dove on the ground. I look up, I'm upside down on the ground. I don't see anything. Next thing I know, I see Jeff snag the ball and just shoot. And it just went in. I'm like, oh my God. It was just a heartbreaker for them. But for us, it was great.
Now, Jeff, from your perspective, I mean, I know you're set up there on the perimeter just in case something like that happens. Justin gets stopped, has to kick it out or something. But did you ever see it kind of transpiring the way that it did, just all the craziness and off-balance shot? And did you ever imagine that happening?
Well, if I remember correctly, I think I was a third option on that play because we had Justin going to the left with Jalen trailing. So I honestly didn't even think I was going to get the ball. And Justin, you probably would have just tried to take it in for a layup if you hadn't fallen over.
Yeah, definitely. But I remember Jalen was supposed to be on the left and then you in the corner. I didn't see Jalen anywhere in the play.
Now I've got to jump in here because what we did, I used Jalen as the decoy. I knew they wouldn't.
In the corner, right corner, right?
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't leave Jalen. I knew they wouldn't leave him. So I put Jalen over into the right corner and I put Jeff into the left corner because I thought that they might leave Jeff. What I told you, Justin, I said, you go straight to the hoop and score to tie the game. Unless Jeff's man comes off him, then you pitch to Jeff and he'll be wide open for the three. And if you watch that film, Jeff's man does come off him. He's not the one that bumps you, but he was coming off to help on you, and that's what allowed that ball to roll over to Jeff. And
yeah, Justin knew that was going to happen. That's why he rolled onto the ground and just kind of threw it over to Jeff on the wing. I give Justin complete credit for that play.
Yeah, he made Jeff step over him too at the time. Jeff had to step over him.
Yeah, like the Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue, his own teammate. Now, Jeff, once the ball goes in, I mean, what's the feeling like? Your teammates start rushing you. What's the feeling like when the shot goes in?
Oh man, it was just crazy. You know, the whole place just exploded. It's super loud. I get engulfed by the whole team right away. Obviously, you know the video. We all fall over. We all fall over the other team's point guard. It was just crazy, and I don't know. It was just a hectic moment. You know, I was the JV all year, and for that to happen, I was almost overwhelmed by all the attention. You know, it was just a crazy moment.
Now, how much do you think your time on JV that year set you up for a moment like that? You kind of were the go-to guy all year on JV, had to take a lot of big shots. I mean, the way you look at it on film, it just kind of seems like it was just kind of natural for you. You just kind of caught the ball, did what you had to do, and shot it up there. How much do you think your time being the go-to guy all year helped you prepare for that moment?
Well, like you said, on JV, I was probably the best player I could say I was the best player on JV that year, so you're always guarded. When I came up to varsity, I was pretty wide open, so a three is a three. So I just kind of viewed it that way. So when I got the chance to play with the varsity guys, we had a lot of great players, Justin, Jalen, Jameson, TJ, Jake. It was pretty easy for me when I was pretty wide open. They trusted me. So, it worked out. You know, I was another piece that could be added to them at the end of the year.
Now, Justin, Jeff came in and he really contributed for you guys, not just that shot. Throughout that game, I think he hit a couple more threes, if I'm not mistaken. How easy was it welcoming a guy like that? Sometimes it's tough when you welcome a young guy in, contributing at the end of the year, but a guy with his talent and a guy with his confidence, was it easy for you guys to welcome him in?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We knew Jeff was a hard worker. I mean, every time we have practice for varsity, Jeff would be in the aux gym shooting by himself every day. Just in the gym by himself, shooting, rebounding for himself. He's a great player.
Now, Jeff, how much on the other side of that coin, how much do you think their willingness to welcome you in and give you the ball in big situations like that Far West Regional, give you the ball when you're open to hit those threes, how much do you think their confidence in you allowed you to be confident in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, they always told me, you know, if you're open, shoot it. Coach Bratsky would tell me, if you're not going to shoot it, why do I have you in the game? You know, at that point, why am I in the game if I'm not going to shoot it? And, the confidence they had in me let me know, even if I missed, that they were going to be okay with it and that they had trusted me. And, you know, as a sophomore, looking up to these guys, that was really big for me.
Now, on that same note, Coach, you've been around a long time. It probably haven't had that opportunity to put a season-long JV player into big situations like that, but how much do you think, like I just asked Jeff, how much do you think such a talented team that you already had, how much do you think their willingness to welcome him in and allow him, not necessarily allow him, but like I said, to welcome him in and have him produce in those big spots?
Well, he was the first JV player that I called up for sectionals and gave a prominent role to. I had not ever done that before, but it was kind of in the plans right from the beginning of the year. You know, I told my assistant coaches and, you know, what the plan was. I really wanted, you know, we were talented. And for him to come up to varsity to start the year and come off the bench and maybe play 10 to 12 minutes a game, I mean, he would have been a contributor, but I just felt it was much more beneficial to him, like I said, to be on the JV and learn how to be a go-to guy, because he was getting boxed and one, he was getting face guarded, he had to learn how to score, you know, through the double team. Whenever there was a big shot going to be taken, you know, he had to take it on that JV team. So the guys, I knew they would accept him because they wanted to win. One thing about that team really thought they were good, and they really wanted to win and advance to that state Final Four. So it didn't surprise me at all that they accepted him. And he had played with all those guys in all the off-season tournaments, off-season leagues. I mean, it's not like he had never played with them. They had played with him. He had produced with them. So they were real comfortable with him.
Now, like I said before, I'm not trying to show your age or anything, even though I kind of am, even though I kind of am. You've been around for a long time, a long time.
Yeah, you keep saying that.
Where does this moment rank in terms of all-time moments? Not to say anybody's better than anybody, but I mean, in terms of moment, does it get any better than this throughout your high school career?
Well, no, I don't know how it could get much better than that to win the game at the buzzer going into the state Final Four. You know, we've had a number of buzzer beaters that have won big games, but never that big of a game. You know, the only one that I can recall, and someone maybe will tweet and correct me, you know, Hogan's jumper, it wasn't at the buzzer though, to beat UPrep to send us to the sectional finals. You know, it's similar, but obviously that wasn't as big of a moment as Jeff's moment. So that's got to be the all-time big shot in the history of my coaching Batavia High School basketball.
Now, Jeff, after the game and after everything kind of, as much as it could, settled down, what was the experience like with all the fans and your classmates and friends, and what was that experience like? How many texts did you receive? I mean, how many phone calls? How crazy was that?
I remember
it was on SportsCenter. I mean, the whole deal.
Right. So I remember, well, first of all, right after the game, I got surrounded by all these cameras, and me as a shy sophomore JV kid, I didn't know what to say to them. I was just super nervous. But after all that, we were on the bus. My phone died because it was just blown up with text. Like, it just died immediately. I couldn't get a text off. It was like the old slide phones.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a text off. Like, I remember people on the team saying it was going to be on SportsCenter. I was like, what? No way. Like, in my mind, it was just like a shot that I made, you know. And, yeah, it was pretty surreal, honestly, the whole reaction to it. The next day, I had teachers playing the video in class. I remember I came into lunch the next day, and a whole bunch of my teammates were in there, and they got up and started clapping for me when I walked in. And I was just like this super embarrassed young high school kid. But I mean, it was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience for me.
How thankful are you? Such a close-knit group. You've been with them for a while through AAU and everything, as you mentioned before. How thankful are you that you have this, not just the success to look back on, but kind of a signature moment to really define your time spent with this group?
Oh, yeah, it's something that I'll never forget. And, you know, I thought I lost the DVD. And just this past week, Jake came over and he found it. And so that's why I was able to watch it again, because I had texted Jeff's brother wondering if he had anywhere like a copy of at least a shot. And he tweeted out the video of the shot. And then when Jake found the DVD, I was able to watch the whole game. All the memories started coming flooding back. But, you know, we had an up and down year that year. We had some problems. We had some, we had to go through some adversity, and it just made it all the more rewarding that they really came together as a group at the end of the year, and they really, over the course of the year, one by one, they all bought into the theme of, it takes the whole team, to win a championship. And it was gratifying to see them, finally get it and then produce.
All right, and to close things, the last word here from myself and Nate Ryder. Nate, we try to keep these episodes as upbeat as possible, highlighting some seniors while providing a bit of entertainment during these down times. But the elephant in the room is really just what we hit on with Grace Walker, the seniors and of the local area not able to fulfill their final season as a high school athlete, and that's really tough news for them and just tough news for anybody involved to deal with. We've seen these kids grow up from, some of them 8th graders, some of them even 7th graders at their given sport, and to see them not be able to close out their high school career on a high note is really difficult to see.
Yeah, I mean, especially the ones I've done, at least the ones I've done, with Keisha Pansky and Bree Smith and Ty Woods and now Grace. I mean, these are all athletes that, one, have been around for a very long time, and two, they're going to play next year. They're going to play in college. They're all going different places at different levels. So at least for them, there's a shining light at the end of the tunnel. But a lot of these kids aren't going to play sports in college, and the vast majority probably won't. And those are the ones you really feel for. Those seniors who, they're good athletes, but either they don't want to pursue sports in college or just aren't at that level, and they look forward to their senior year. And all these baseball players and softball players and track athletes that really were looking forward to that one last ride, and they're not going to get it, and it's a shame.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'd be remiss not to mention the coaches that were in their final seasons. We've spoke about Coach Rick Saunders for Batavia, a long-time career since the 1999 season, about to come to a close, it seems. On the back of this COVID-19 pandemic, he had announced that this was his final season on the bench for the Batavia baseball team, and even more disappointing for Coach Saunders, he won that sectional title, his first of his career this past season, and he had a lot coming back on that team. And that's another thing for these coaches. You only get good teams, as we said with the 2013 Batavia boys basketball team, you only get teams like that come around once in a blue moon. And those coaches that had that team coming down the pike this year, and now that season goes out the window, it's got to be tough for the coaches as well.
Absolutely. I mean, at least the saving grace for Coach Saunders is he did get that sectional title last year. And, imagine if they would have fallen in that sectional final and he knew he had this team coming back, he could have probably thought, okay, well, at least I'll have another shot next year. Granted, it seems like he has a shot every year, but still, it's got to be tough. You want to have one last hurrah, and be out with the kids. And Coach Saunders loves it as much as anybody. He loves being out there with the kids and working with them. And, you don't want to see it end like that, but, he's been around forever. He's been around for 20-plus years, and, at some point you got to say goodbye. And maybe this is kind of a unique way to say goodbye. He goes out on top and, rides off into the sunset.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to just about do it for this week's episode. We'd like to thank you for joining us once again. This week's episode, as always, brought to you by the Tonawanda Valley Federal Credit Union. Nate, it's been another jam-packed episode. It's been fun taking you away from what's difficult times out in the real world. We'll see you next week.
Both teams lead as champions.